Hi, Lisa Romano. Hi, how are you? I just wanted to tell you about an event I just left. I left an event which my narcissistic, well, I don't believe he's a narcissist, but he has some narcissistic tendencies. He invited me to an event which I decided to go. I know it's not the best to be around the narcissist. However, I felt like it was a good opportunity. And this is how I applied your teachings. When he criticized, at one point we were writing notes, and he told me to write a note for him, so I decided to do so. And I wrote the note, and I did a very nice thing. I even expounded on it. Then he came back, he was like, "Oh, you have a very bad handwriting." And I responded, because I know what he's doing, I responded, "You know what, thank you. Thank you for the compliment," because research says people who actually don't have that good of a handwriting actually are the smartest. Like, let's say doctors, they have the worst handwritings, but they're smart. That means they're smart. So that, to me, is a compliment. So thank you so much for the compliment. And the whole night, he was like a puppy. Like, he could not believe the new person I am. So full of confidence. He constantly was coming to me, wanted me to stay. At one point, he said, I told him I was leaving because, it was late. And he said, "Oh, I bet, you won't leave if I tell you that we're going to go for dinner after this event." And I said, "No, it's actually kind of late, so I'm going to leave." And then he proceeded to say, "Oh, no, I'll walk you across, to the garage." I was like, "No, actually, I'm fine. You just take your time." And I could just see it in his face. And I just want to thank you. I know I am recovering. I know I'm not there yet, but Lisa, you just don't know the impact you are causing in people's lives. I hope this recording reaches you when you're good and well. But please keep doing what you're doing. Please keep posting what you. But again, this is just a recording to say thank you. Thank you so much for helping me regain my confidence back. And I can sleep smiling knowing that I applied your teaching. Thank you so much.
Namaste, everybody. I bow to the love and enlighten you. Lisa A. Romano here, the Breakthrough Life Coach. And today I want to address an email that I got from somebody. It was really, really short, but I felt a lot of pain in it, and that's why I wanted to address it. And there's just so much meat on the bone, even though it's just a few sentences long. And what he writes in is, "In a world where there is no answer, how to overcome being shamed by others, how to express disagreement and even anger without being fooled and persistently disconnected by others, how to overcome being as a fool, entertaining others when they are making fun of and laughing at me, and it hurts so much." So lots of us can relate to this, right? How can we, well, the questions he's asking are pretty deep, and he's asking, how can I overcome shame by others, right? So this person, I wrote him back, he has not written me back, but I will not release his name. But the question is really, how can I'm being made fun of, I'm disagreeing with other people, and rather than respect my ideas and my opinions, I'm being made fun of, I'm being mocked, right? So I get the sense, and I could be wrong, but the words that he's chosen are fooled and shamed. He used the word fool twice, being made fun of and being laughed at, and then it hurts so much. So what I'm sensing from this email is, I want to be my own person around other people, right? I want to be able to tell people this is what I think and this is how I feel. But when I do that, I'm mocked by the people around me, which in my opinion is a form of gaslighting. Now, what I would like you to do, and anybody else out there this is for anybody who's experiencing this type of situation where you are in a situation where you're expressing yourself and you're being made fun of. That happens a lot. That happened to me a lot in my family of origin as well. And what I began to understand, it's a very long process. It does not happen overnight, but I would ask you to go back into your history. And I talk about this in the program that I teach. Go back into your history and figure out when you started to feel like others were shaming you? Who was the first person who mocked you in front of a group? Who was the first person who made you feel like your thoughts were insignificant? Who was the first person that made you feel like what you had to say was irrelevant? And what you'll discover is that in those moments when those wounds originally took place is a lot of pain, and it hasn't been worked through. It's stuck, right? So when we are wounded as children, there's always an emotional counterpart to the wounding. So if my mother mocks me in front of, a bunch of, 7-year-olds, and I'm 7 and we have a birthday party or something, and my mother makes fun of me, I don't know, maybe I wet the bed. I don't know. I don't remember doing that. But let's just say I'm out and about with a bunch of 7-year-olds and my mom is there with other moms, and my mom mentions in front of this group of girls that I wet the bed. Now, what'll happen is I'm shamed. I am made to feel embarrassed in that moment. That experience has affected me and has wounded me. And there is a scar. There's a wound that has been created in me on a visceral level. My brain has been traumatized. I remember that feeling of feeling raw and exposed, right? And then we have to appreciate that at those moments in time, there is an emotional equivalent that takes place, and it gets stored in our body viscerally, especially if we're born to people who do not allow us to say, hey, Mom, you really hurt my feelings today. And if you're born to people who embarrass you, and if you dared confront them to say, hey, listen, that hurt, you were probably shamed and mocked for expressing yourself. So someone like this person who wrote me this email, dear one, someone like you, I would imagine that this just hasn't started in your adult life. I would think that this goes back into your childhood as well. So the first thing I'd like you to do is try to figure out where this ties to in your life. When did this first start to occur? Because it sounds like you're seeking to be validated by other people, but doesn't sound like you're attracting people who can validate you. So you're stuck. You're actually recreating a situation from the past, probably unconsciously, but you may be psychologically, unconsciously, trying to solve this dynamic that happened to you in your childhood. And in terms of how to overcome being shamed by others, the answer that you're seeking is not found externally. The answer that you're seeking is all about self-policing your own mind and checking yourself and asking yourself, am I seeking that person's validation? Has that person wounded me in the past, and is it rational, and is it logical, and is it wise for me to open my mouth and be vulnerable around this person when I know in fact that they have hurt me and shamed me before? So the change has to start with you, dear one. So if you're hanging out with people who have shamed you, and you're asking me how to overcome being shamed by others, then the answers lie within yourself. Ask yourself when this dynamic first began to happen in your life, and then ask yourself if you are attracting healthy people. Ask yourself, are you attracting people who are narcissistic and people who gaslight you, who enjoy making fun of you? And then you'll understand that you really can't be vulnerable around these types of people. There are just certain people in our experience that we cannot express ourselves to, that we should not express ourselves to, especially when we're not healed. I think I'm pretty much at a point where I could probably say anything to anyone that's hurt me, because I've detached so much and I've healed so deeply that how other people see me is really irrelevant. And what they think about my truth and my perception, they're entitled to that. But that doesn't mean that I'm not able to hold on to my own perception. When you're not healed and you open your mouth and you want to share yourself, what happens is most of the time you're attracting people who are going to abuse you. So here you are being vulnerable and open about how you truly feel, and it's being abused externally. And that causes more shame. It triggers the original shame from the first wound. And so there are a lot of issues that have to be addressed just with this 2 or 3 line email. But I'm hoping that you understand, those of you who are struggling with this dynamic, being afraid to be vulnerable around other people, there are just certain people that you should not trust. There are certain people that you should not be vulnerable around. And you have to take a personal inventory of the people that you share yourself with. And you're asking me how to express disagreement and even anger without being fooled and persistently disconnected by others. Dear one, your focus is on the other and not on self. So you're asking me, how can I express myself and have a disagreement with someone and even be angry without being fooled and persistently disconnected. We have no control over other people. So when you express yourself, you have to understand that you're rolling the dice. And whenever you express yourself, you cannot control the outcome, how someone else is going to react to how you feel. So if you're dealing with someone who's healthy, they should be able to hear you even though you're angry. You have to come off respectfully, of course. But someone who's healthy will be able to hear you. And if they're not able to hear you, then they're not healthy. Then you have to reevaluate that situation. You have to ask yourself, should I really be at all telling this person that I'm angry? Because when I do, they're just going to walk away. Which you have to understand, when you express yourself, that is the gamble that we take. Now, on the flip side of that, that doesn't mean that you should not express yourself. That doesn't mean that you should tone yourself down. You have to be willing. If you want to live an authentic life, there are so many things that you have to understand. There are people that you just should not express yourself to because they will exploit you until you're really, really healed. Then you can tell people exactly how you feel if you want to. Hopefully you get to a point where it's irrelevant what people think about you and you can just go about your merry way and disconnect from them and attract healthier people. That's awesome. But the other thing that we have to understand is that when you begin just expressing yourself, that's when relationships get rocky. Because if you're the codependent in the relationship, if you're the people pleaser, if you're the peacemaker, then what will happen is people want you to stay in that place. If you're of attracted people who get off, right? They feel energized when they're able to humiliate you. Then when you open your mouth to these people, they're going to walk away because you no longer serve them. And that's okay. That actually serves your higher good. So you're asking me again, how to express disagreement and even anger without being fooled. Well, we can't control whether or not these people are going to see us like we're a fool and persistently to be disconnected by others. People who are unhealthy, if you tell them how you feel and you come across with respect and you're not minimizing them and you're not attacking them, you're just telling them how you feel, and you're looking for a better connection to that person, if that person withdraws, that person is disconnecting from you and you can't control that, which sucks. It really, really sucks because there are just certain people in this life that when you approach them and you tell them the truth, they can't handle it. They don't like living above the veil. They don't like being held accountable. They don't like being told they can't make fun of you. They don't like you telling them what to do, even if what you're saying is fair. They don't like it. So if they're disengaging from you, that's something that you can't control, dear one, and you shouldn't have to try. Let them go. It's very, very rocky. It's very good to have a support system when you start opening your mouth because it can be very, very lonely and very confusing. And while you're going through the detachment process, a lot of attachment trauma can get triggered. A lot of shame can get triggered. So when you start doing this type of work, make sure that you have some type of a base, some type of a support system as you begin to express yourself more authentically. How to overcome being as a fool, entertaining others when they're making fun or laughing, which hurts, and making fun of yourself is what I think you're trying to say. Dear one, you don't have to stay. You have the right to walk away. You have the right to turn the cheek and walk away when people are trying to humiliate you. You simply say, you know what, guys? I've had enough. I'm going to go to bed now. Or you know what, guys? I don't like the way this feels. You know what, guys? I don't appreciate being made, being treated like a jackass. I don't appreciate this. And then they'll probably mock you again. My brother was a New York City police officer and very sensitive guy. Of course, we grew up in an unrecovered ACOA home where we weren't allowed to talk about our emotions. My dad was emotionally abusive and psychologically abusive, would call my brother all sorts of names. My brother grew up very insecure. It was important to him that other people saw him. It was important to him that he felt connected, especially to men. And, on the police force, if you know anything about, at least the NYPD, cops are awesome, don't get me wrong. But in the locker room, they can be brutal to one another. There were plenty of times when my brother was labeled the punk ass. He was labeled the insecure one. And they really, really took advantage of him. And like what you're saying is that how do I overcome the shame of being made fun of when I try to express myself? There are just a couple of things that you have to do, dear one. Understand that you don't need anyone's validation. Nobody. Understand that you may be trying to really heal an old wound from childhood. Maybe the people that you love made you feel insecure, and now you're walking around desperate to feel connected to other people, and you're unaware that you're attracting negative people into your life and actually recreating those old patterns from childhood. So there's a lot that we have to become consciously aware of in order to heal this dynamic. But the most important thing I want to get across to you, dear one, is that you understand that the answer does not lie outside of you. The answers lie within you. You have to know that you're enough. You have to stop seeking other people's validation. You have to know whether or not you are recreating a childhood experience all over again. You have to know you have the right to turn the cheek and walk away. You need a support system. You have to know that when you start living an authentic life, the people who are inauthentic get upset and your life starts to get rocky. And people will detach from you. They will disconnect with you. They will stop hanging out with you because you're not allowing them to poke fun at you. There are just certain people in this world that we should not allow ourselves to be. They're not worth our authentic self. Your authentic self is like is gold. Consider your true self gold, and understand that not everybody has the right to see that part of you or feel that part of you. You don't have to expose that part to anyone. You have to protect it. Understand that the goal is not to control anything that's happening outside of us. The goal is to control everything that's happening inside of us. And it starts with an awareness. It starts with our perception. Once we change our perception of self and we start respecting the self and we start walking in alignment with respect for the self, our outer experiences begin to change. People who have been abusing us will try to abuse us even more to pull us down to their vibration. But we have to hold on to the self. And you've got to know that you're good enough. And you've got to know that, yes, when you stand up for yourself, it's going to get rocky. But you've got to learn to hold on to yourself and know that you deserve better. And remember, the answer isn't outside of you, dear one. The answer is inside of you. And if you're codependent on a false idea that has you thinking that you need other people to validate you, then definitely you have to look at that in your life, how you're showing up as a codependent in your life, thinking that you need other people to validate you and agree with you, and what has you falsely believing that you need to tolerate being made fun of by people. You don't. So I hope this has inspired you, and I hope, dear one, to the person who has written me this email, I hope this video finds you, and I hope that it inspires you, and as well as other people who may be watching this video as well. Dear one, namaste. I bow to the love and enlighten you. Oh, and as a reminder, this Thursday, December 1st, I'll be holding a webinar, and it will be all about dysfunctional families, how being raised in dysfunctional families creates attachment trauma, creates codependency, and how my coaching program addresses that. I'll be explaining how my coaching program works. My coaching program, the classes are forming now. It is open enrollment right now up until January 12th. That's when the classes begin. And hopefully I will see lots of you then. Namaste. I bow to the love and the light in you today and always. Bye, everybody.